Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of 27 Outs. I'm Ivan alongside Stefan. Damn, could you believe that we've done 10 of these now? 10. 10 came and went just like that.
Talk
By
about
the
it.
way, guys, before we get into today's show, I do want to say that the streak is over for me. And Stefan, I know you're wondering what the hell is this guy talking about when he says the streak? What I mean by that is
Hold on,
right.
hold on.
Breaking news, right? So the streak for me is over because for the first 9 episodes, I always made sure to wear a shirt that was related to baseball. And with today being episode 10, that streak is officially over. I had a busy day, man. I did a lot. I woke up early today. But 27 outs is what we look forward to at the end of the day, because life happens. I got a life, Stefan has a life. I'm sure you guys have a life. But the good thing is we all come together every Sunday at 8 p.m. And here we are yet again.
I hear that. Real quick, I just want to shout out my brother Ange, aka Filthy Rags. I'm wearing some of his merch, so I had to shout out the big bro and
Shout out to him.
Support
Wait,
the family.
is he the same one who gave us that shirt the last time? You know which one I'm talking about, right?
That's not Filthy, but the beat you hear at the beginning of the show, we got that from Filthy because Filthy is the rapper. I'm gonna play you some of his stuff after we get off the air. But shout out to my brother. I figured I rock the merch. You know what I mean?
Shout out to him too, and I know he watches too. I see the comments sometimes.
Nah, I mean? So we gotta keep it all in the family. But speaking of keeping it all in the family, man, I just want to let you guys know. Thank you guys for getting that bonus clip to up over 100 views. You guys are rock stars. We appreciate y'all. We wouldn't be doing this without you guys. It means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, man. Because I lost count at this point, but not only that video, but you guys have helped us get over 100 views on several videos at this point. I think we have a few episodes that have reached over 100. I think we have like episode 2 or 3 is already at 200 or very close to. So you guys do a lot, man. You guys do a lot. But at the end of the day, not only do we do this because we enjoy it, but it feels good knowing that we have a crew that loves hanging out with us every night not every night, every Sunday at 8. But aside from that, go ahead, Stefan.
Don't worry. When these numbers get up, it's just gonna feel like we here every night. So don't worry about that.
Get those numbers up. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at 27outs3C. And of course, right now, if you're watching the YouTube live, because that is the only way to catch the show right now at this very second, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel right now. I think we have 83 of you guys, which we of course appreciate. But as we mentioned before, next piece of bonus content comes out when we reach 100 subscribers, I believe.
And not only that, but you get to pick one of the episode topics after we reach 100. So that's an added bonus. So if there's something, you know what I mean, we're gonna put a poll up, and you guys get to pick what we talk about.
Right. So that's fun. That's fun.
You get to craft the show along with us. Speaking of fun, let's start this with a little bit of a call up by the Chicago Cubs. Pete Crow-Armstrong was called up by the Chicago Cubs after Cody Bellinger unfortunately went on the injured list with a fractured rib. He's expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks.
Tough blow for the Cubs.
Big time. Tough blow for the Cubs and also tough blow for him because if you remember, he signed that 3-year deal that has opt-outs after this season and next season. So you were hoping, if I had another great year, I could have went back out on the market, got more money, been more productive. But you're happy for Pete Crow-Armstrong because all he did since he's come up here is he's hit.
Yeah.
I believe his batting average is 400. Hold on, I got it right here. Let's look at his early season success. Because listen, I don't care who you are. It's not easy to come up to the big leagues and do what this guy has done. If you look at that, the batting average is 400. That's listen, OPS over 1,200. So shouts out to Pete Crow-Armstrong. That's big boy stuff. We just wanted to highlight, how impressive this is. And listen, 23, he was a big part of the Mets organization. I believe he was in the Javier Baez trade that brought Javier Baez to the Mets.
Oh, okay.
And he went the other way. So
I do remember that deal.
He was a big part of that. So shout out to him. And that's big time stuff for Pete Crow-Armstrong. So,
right.
You don't want to see him get the call under these circumstances, but to be able to say, yo, my first at bat, my first MLB hit was a homer, that's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah. Shout out to Pete Crow-Armstrong. And honestly, shout out to every single prospect who has gotten called up thus far this season, because this season, man, it looks like the year of the prospect. I'm calling it right now. With the amount of injuries to pitchers, to you name it, right? I feel like guys who are in AAA in any organization that goes for should be ready. And I get it. These guys are more than ready. But with the way guys are dropping like flies nowadays, you just never know when you're going to get that call. And you might actually get it sooner rather than later.
And that's why you got to be prepared. Like, that's why for me, there's always an eventuality that, if something does happen, something goes down, you got to be ready to come up and produce at a moment's notice. Like, for example, like I can't even fathom what it's like for a guy like Pete Crow-Armstrong, like a guy like Jackson Holliday who got the call. Now he got sent down since we last recorded. He went 1 for, I think,
right, which sucks, but I'm sure he'll figure it out and he'll be fine down the road.
Right, but I do think it's something that we have to applaud, how these guys are 20, 21, 22, 23 years old coming up to the big leagues and having an immediate impact on their franchises.
Right.
I think, and credit to these teams for saying, you know what, we're going to call these kids up because they can have an impact on what we're trying to do. Now, granted, are the rules in place for them when they get called up to be able to say, listen, if you get called up and you do what you got to do and you play a significant role, you can be a major part of what we're trying to do here? Yes. So that's something that I do think is an interesting concept, considering how much time have we spent on this show already yelling about service time manipulation. So
right,
the fact that doesn't feel like it's a part of the conversation this early in the season feels kind of good.
Yeah. In addition to Pete Armstrong, one thing I want to share on the show today. So shout out to my boy Josh. I think he watches from time to time, but he DM'd me this list of pictures. Now, this list was created back on April 7th. So, that was nearly over 20 days ago. So I'm sure it is different at this point, but a lot of these guys do remain on the injured list. And I'm sure more have been added ever since. But just to name a few starting pitchers on the injury list, right? At the top, obviously, we got Garrett Cole, Jacob deGrom, Ohtani, who is playing, of course, for the Dodgers, but not pitching. So he does deserve to be on this list. Spencer Strider, we spoke about him. Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, Lance McCullers Jr., Dustin May. I mean, the list goes on. And that's just a few. If I actually show you guys what the list looks like, there's at least like close to 25, 30 names there.
We can add a few more now because Wade Miley's done for the season. He had Tommy John. It was announced he needs Tommy John. Brian Bale's on the IL now with a lat strain, so that's another guy you can add to the list. Yeah. Who's another guy? There was a guy in Tampa Bay, Christian Pache. He's a reliever. He's now on the injured list as well. So there's
and I've had some conversations because we've talked about it on the show, Stefan, with our viewers, and shout out to you guys. But I've talked about it with people off the air, and I've told people like, hey man, this is what I think is the reason for the injuries, and a lot of it relates to velocity and the fact that these kids just don't know how to slow it down, right? And at the end of the day, I get it. I mean, Stefan, you like to say they're playing to get a bag, rightfully so, as they should, especially with the amount of money that's being given out these days. But yeah, a lot of people are also agreeing with us, Stefan. A lot of people are saying that, they think it's the increase in velocity and the fact that guys don't really know how to do anything other than go all out.
Well, let me take it a step further. And I also say, I think we're not training these pitches the right way. I think the training methods and the programs are putting these pitches on, throwing with weighted balls and, trying to increase velocity and all these different the pitch things that they're doing now, and Rapsodo and all these different machines they use. And it's just like, okay, that's all well and good, but why did we stop running? Why did we stop putting the body through its paces? And this is just another form of that. And it's just unfortunate. Speaking of injuries, the Red Sox sustained another injury. Tristan Casas, their first baseman, he also has a broken rib. He's going to be down 6 to 8 weeks himself. Wow. The Red Sox now lead Major League Baseball with 13 injuries. They had 13 players on the IL. That's the most out of any team in baseball thus far this season. So,
and I think they have managed to look good despite that.
That's amazing.
Sox, I'm going to be honest, that I personally didn't have high hopes for them entering the season. I know at some point we talked about it here, Stefan. Rafael Devers looking like Will Smith on the episode of Fresh Prince, where he's just like by himself looking around like, yo, where is everybody?
And at some point, if I'm being honest, I think you're going to have to add his name to the list, because I think he's playing on a bad knee. So if the Red Sox continue to struggle like this at some point this year, I think Ralphie's going to shut it down and get that knee cut on, because he's not playing on a knee that feels all that well right now. So shout out for him for grinding it through. But
one thing I wanted to ask you too. So a couple minutes ago, I know you talked about, both of us did, of course. We talked about Pete Armstrong getting a call up, and then, of course, him pretty much taking over the role of Cody Bellinger. And I know you mentioned the fact that he did have opt-outs on after every single year of the deal that he signed in the offseason with the Cubs. But do you think that he could pretty much kiss that goodbye for this offseason? I think so.
I mean,
6 to 8 weeks. We're looking at what, 2 months?
Probably, if we're lucky, you'll probably see him at some point before the break.
Yes.
So
you have to come back and go on an absolute tear to opt out and probably get what he's.
And honestly, here's the thing. I understand playing hard, but can we not run into walls? What are we doing? Come on. Like, you're running into walls. Like, I get it, but come on. That's just not smart business.
Right.
If the ball's at the wall or it's over the wall, don't run into the wall. You know why? Because the wall always wins.
Mm-hmm.
The wall always wins. The Ivy will always win. And I credit the effort, but sometimes you just watch these guys make plays, and I'm like, bro, what were you thinking?
Yeah, and I agree with you too, because for those who don't know, I do play softball, when the weather's nice here in New York, and now's that time, right? Today was beautiful, by the way. So what Stefan said regarding, thinking twice whether you're actually going to make a play or not, because in this case, you don't want to end up hurt. But I've done that to the point where, like, I don't know if you guys could see it. I think it's this side here. So I've stopped like throwing myself in like certain ways, because I'm not trying to ruin my skin, bro. And that shit hurts, man, especially on turf. That shit hurts.
Listen,
so I'm not a Major League Baseball player, but we got these guys running into Ivy, like he said, Aaron Judge last season.
That's
pretty
crazy.
Much breaking his damn big toe.
No, that's nuts. I'm like, I get playing hard and I appreciate the effort, but at some point you got to take these players away from themselves. Like, hey, man,
sometimes it's okay to allow it to play it off the wall.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that sometimes.
And if you got a strong arm, the guy's going to think about twice before he goes to second.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? If you play the carom correctly and you get it in fast enough, I think he'll rethink the injury part of it. But shout out to Pete Crow. We didn't want to see this happen this way, but if you're gonna come up, you might as well come up the way he did and start with a mother friggin' bang, like, I'm here.
But he's listen, man. Just because Cody Bellinger comes back at some point, that doesn't necessarily mean that he'll be sent down, because maybe there could be somebody else who's hurt at that point, where now he probably kind of played his way into being a part of the everyday roster, if that makes sense.
There you go. And the thing is that you can always move Bellinger to first base, like, to preserve his body so he's not running into walls. You could tell a guy like, Patrick Wisdom, like, hey man, there's not really any room for you here. Like, we'd like to put Cody at this spot so that the kid gets some needed reps into the field.
Yeah,
And
and
so
I
far,
do see that happening at some point in the near future for Cody Bellinger. I don't think he'll play the entirety of his career as an outfielder. I do see
no,
him at some point becoming a first baseman, and that just being his new position moving forward.
I can definitely see that. That makes tons of sense, not only for him, but for the organization to keep him on the field and keep his body, you know, preserved and healthy. So that makes sense.
Right.
Um,
All right. So any last thoughts before we move on to the second topic? Because we got these
let,
comments here.
let's
We
read
got
the
quite a few too.
let's read these things, man. Let's make it happen.
All right. So let's see. We got Rick here. Love y'all commenting before the show comes on. Oh, yeah. Stefan and I did mention that. Thank you, Rick, for saying that, because we also want to show more love to the viewers. While Stefan and I were here chatting before the show went live, we noticed Ray was in here. Ray said, "Let's go." Let me show that comment.
He's
Shout
waiting.
out to you, Ray.
He's waiting.
You're one of those who we could, count on
You know what
to
I
be
mean?
here. No baseball gear still works. Yeah,
Right.
man. Listen, cut me some slack today. I'm gonna get right back to it next week. But today was it was a long day, man, and it was a good one too.
T-shirt gang. You know, I was a member of the T-shirt gang, and then I had to, step up a little something. T-shirt gang, man.
My life be working kids. Hey, that's my life too. I mean, I only have one kid, but
my girl knows about the working.
Oh yeah.
Kids, so shout out to you.
Hey, shout out to her. Okay, now I know when I see that name in the comments who it actually is.
Yeah.
Filthy Rags. Yeah, shout out to Stefan's brother.
You know what I mean? Going real quick, sidebarring the hell out of this conversation while you read that comment. He called me after the Knicks game today. I thought he was about to lose his mind. He was like, "Yo, I'm in the car driving. I almost crashed my whip."
Right. That's a good point, Rick. I honestly thought that Javi Baez did play his ass off when he was traded to the Mets, and it was unfortunate that the team was only able to really experience that for a month and a half, 2 months max. I think I'm being nice with the 2 months.
2 months, if that. But I just don't think for me it wasn't a small move. To me, if you wanted to sign him, you could have done it in free agency.
Yeah, analytics is a major driver to pressure coaches, scouts, and intern players to ramp up their spin rates. Yeah, that's a good point, man. I think with how much attention is being brought to the numbers war and all the different types of things that people like to talk about nowadays, just to make their point seem valid. And I get it, at some point that is going to become the norm. I know there's certain things that a lot of people, including myself, are still unfamiliar with. Steph, and I know sometimes you might read a stat and it's like, what the hell are you saying? Like, what does that mean? See, so that's a good point, Rick.
See, hold on, bring his comment back up, because that last line is interesting to me. Not having the sticky stuff doesn't help. Listen, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of whatever advantages these players get to be their best. And I know people say, well, the sticky stuff is like cheating. It's not fair. It's this and that. If in the cold weather, that sticky stuff helps you know where the ball is going,
right?
Let's get some bullfrog back in this ball. Somebody get some bullfrog, some Vaseline. Help these guys out, man.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want is 98 at your earlobe going, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? So shouts out to, even if baseball comes up with their own proprietary sticky stuff where they make it, they condone it, they make in their own factory, where it's a sauce that they provide.
But here's the thing though, Major League Baseball, let's say they do that, Stefan, right? What if and I could see this happening, like, yeah, you guys could use the sticky stuff again. However, it is the sports version of it, and you can't use an excessive amount. I could see that happening.
Well, I think that's fair too, but I think the conversation needs to be legislated by the competition committee. They need to have some sort of, rules and guidelines as opposed to what can you use, how much can you use, and what's the guideline for the ultimate usage of it. I'm not upset if that becomes a thing at some point in the future. And maybe it teaches these pitchers to rely more on the off speed and not throw so much of the heater, and you get more movement on the ball as opposed to velocity itself.
But that's the problem, Stephen, with a lot of pitchers nowadays. And I don't want to discredit the ones who still know how to throw a true breaking pitch. But even pitchers with their breaking pitches nowadays, that is hard too. They don't know how to slow it down.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like now,
like your fastball is 99 and your slider is 95. Where's the difference?
So I think so. The prime example I'll give you, because I watched him pitch the 9th inning last night. If you watch David Bednar last night could not. He's the closer
of the Pirates.
He could not locate his fastball last night, so he strictly stood with your speed, and it was coming out about 84, 85.
Okay.
And his fastball was sat about 96, 97. So that was a nice speed variant, right? The last at bat, he kind of locked in the heater a little bit to get to the place where you're just like, okay, now he found his heater, but he was kind of coming around it, which is what a player does when he gets the side of the baseball instead of getting on top of the baseball. He comes around the side of it, and he was just hitting him with changeups, and he had Michael Conforto feeling like, what the hell did you just throw me, bro? it was I was almost like, I almost felt bad for Conforto standing in the box, because it was like, man, that's filthy.
Right.
That's unfair.
All right. So before we move on to the next topic, one last comment here. I see, if the Cubs make a postseason run and he's a big part of it, then he opts out. Right. I could see that. But like you said, and he's a big part of it, which goes back to what I said a few minutes ago, Rick, regarding Cody Bellinger having to return. And he not only go on a tear, because I don't want to say that, because, slumps are part of the game. Like, let's just put that out there. Like, just because a guy is going through a slump, I don't think he has to be crucified. But yeah, if he does something in a very significant way, I mean, he just might have a chance.
I'll leave it at this too. I think also leaving Scott Boras would help his cause a little bit as well, but I'll digress.
That's a good point, man. I mean, we could actually say that when it comes to other players too.
No, but we're not going to get into the whole diatribe of Scott. But speaking of diatribes, interesting takes, and something that I personally want to get your take on. I'm going to need you to have those drops ready at a moment's notice, because I'm going to say some crazy, funky, off-the-wall stuff. So please be at the ready with whatever you think is appropriate.
Wait, hold on. Before you get into it, is it regarding the next topic or no?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if I should embrace myself for something regarding Mike Trout. Something completely different. And by the way, guys, as you see at the bottom, what we're about to get into, or Stephen rather, he's going to lead the way. Is Mike Trout still a top 5 player? Which is a great question.
Before I even get to that, let me ask you this. What do you think about him? You think he's still a top 5 player?
I think a healthy Mike Trout is a top 5 player. A healthy Mike Trout. Now, I get it. It's tough. We got a lot of great players, and not to say that there weren't great players when he was the best player in baseball, and that was for a while. Let's keep that in mind. But I mean, we just have so many guys. You got Ohtani, you got Betts, you got Judge, you got this guy, you got that guy. I think when Trout was at his peak, some of those names were around at the time, but there weren't so many, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, the game's full of talent now. So what I'm about to say sounds crazy. I'm not debating whether he's a top 5 player. I'm just debating whether his results are even worth it for him to even continue to play at this level when it's going to become fruitless. Let me get into what I mean, right? If I'm Mike Trout, I want to do 2 things. Because for those that don't know, Mike Trout is suffering from something called spinal stenosis, which is a narrowing of the spinal column.
Wait, isn't that what was bothering David Wright in his career?
Yes, it's the same injury.
And that's I believe that's the injury that ended up forcing him to
retire.
His career. Right.
So what I'm about to say is 2 things. One, if you're the Angels, how much value can you expect for him to give you when that injury can crop up at any time and his back can give him problems at any time, and he's going to have to manage this throughout the rest of his career? And the vibe I get, this feels very Don Mattingly-esque. Like you want to see the guy be great. For those that don't know, Don Mattingly also had to retire due to back issues, and That's the vibe that I get. David Wright was another name that I thought of, and you're just like, bro, man, can you just get out of Anaheim? So what I'm suggesting that Mike Trout does, instead of playing in the outfield, Mike Trout needs to be asked to move to first base.
Right. Or just become the everyday DH, bro. Like, even that shouldn't be a problem for the Angels at this point. Now, I know it decreases his value.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying if you put him at first base, he still is a dual threat and he's able to stay on the field. Listen, the last thing I want is Mike Trout running into any type of wall, making a leaping catch. I don't want to see the acrobatic Mike Trout of 5 years ago, because your body's not going to allow you to do that. At this particular point in time, I kind of want Mike Trout to say, you know what? You either got to put me at first base or you got to trade me, because one or the other isn't going to, like, I can't play center field when I'm 34, 35, 36 years old. Just not happening.
Listen, we recently saw the Phillies do that with Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper is no longer a right fielder. And I'm sure it's going to work in his favor and their favor as well, especially when you consider the amount of years that he signed for. And in this case, I don't see why it shouldn't work for Mike Trout.
So it's going to see, the thing that I'm suggesting is this, right? If you're Mike Trout, it's time for you to be selfish. You've given the organization so much of your prime, so much of yourself, so much of everything.
Giving them MVPs, all that.
It's now time for you to worry about Mike Trout. Now, the contract being tradable is another conversation for another point at another time.
I think teams would do it.
I'm just talking about if this guy is the guy you're going to get 10 home runs and the RBIs continue to be there. Now, the batting average isn't great because he's only hitting 228 on the season. So that needs to improve. And he's also striking out at a much higher rate than he was a couple years ago. But if you're the Angels at some point, you have to seriously consider, like, if we let Ohtani walk for nothing, and the same thing happens with this dude. We just set our franchise back 40 years now. Does Audi Moreno care? Probably not. But here's what it boils down to.
This still bothers me, Stefan, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but you just mentioned Ohtani. I can't believe now when I look back, and I'm sure everyone who's watching right now, I please let me know if you guys feel the same way. Yo, I don't know if there's a better way to say this, but it is a damn shame that they did not make the playoffs when they had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Like, yo, these are two players who we are going to talk to our grandkids about. Yeah. They didn't make the playoffs together. Like, do you hear what I'm saying right now?
Just keep cooking. I'm gonna just let you cook.
It's just unbelievable, bro. Because it happens in every sport. A lot of good players come together. Even in the NBA now,
real
with
quick,
all these trios that like to team up.
Real quick, I was just about to mention,
people don't lose, but at least they're making the playoffs.
Hold on, let me just say this right now for the record. The Phoenix Suns have the dumbest trio in the history of the NBA, and Anthony Edwards is about to sweep them boys out the playoffs and one of them boys out of Phoenix. And I'll tell you.
So are you saying that Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant are worse than Kyrie, James Harden, and Kevin Durant?
Yes, because they won a playoff series. These boys ain't winning the playoff series at all. And I'm going to tell you this right now, real quick. You just mentioned Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. This is the comp. At least Brooklyn won a playoff series.
Yeah, they did.
Right? These boys are about to get sent out of here to Cancun in 4 games.
Yeah. And they're being bullied by Edwards, he's what, like 22, 23, something like that.
Anthony Edwards is the next MJ.
I've heard that comp. I did hear that comp.
Yo, all right, I'm gonna leave it alone because it's gonna turn into a basketball show. I'm gonna leave it alone, but I'm just saying, like,
no, great point. But to, of course, bring it back to Mike Trout, man. He still has several years left on the deal, but his career, now the talent is something that we'll never forget, right? That's something that we're certainly going to talk about for years to come, and probably for the rest of Major League Baseball history, right? But it's just there's no like it's like reading a bland ass chapter book,
right?
Like it's something that you're genuinely looking forward to, but when you get to like the meat of it, it's like, but there's nothing here. What am I talking about?
So, for example,
other than regular season statistics and awards, what am I talking about?
Let me just get it to you like this. It's like,
and by the way, it's not a knock on Trout. I love Trout.
No,
I have loved him since he debuted.
Hold on. But this is where it can be a knock on him, right? Nobody told your ass to take that long contract with the Angels, knowing what we know about the organization. Like, did we not see what happened to Josh Hamilton? Did we not see what happened to TJ Wilson? Did you not see what's happening to Albert Pujols? Like, you were in the locker room with this dude, and you still chose to take the long-term deal? Why? So part of me does not feel bad for him strictly because nobody told you to sign that deal. So now you made your bet, and now you got to lie in it and hope that at this advanced stage in your career, now he's not all the way up there in age quite yet, but he's getting to the point where, like, is he tradable? Is it worth trading him when you know, listen, man, is it even worth it for other teams to be able to say, yo, I want to take a gamble on this guy and I want him to be a part of my organization? Is it even worth it? And at that point, I look back and I'm like, oh, hell no. It's not worth it because the contract is only going to get larger in size. You understand? Yeah. It's not going to get smaller. And the teams that can do this financially, I wonder if they even bother with the idea of, yo, this ain't even worth it for us. Even if we wanted to do this, what player are we getting if he leaves Anaheim?
Right.
Can he handle the pressures of playing somewhere else? Can his body hold up? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked when it comes to him. And I'll just make this final point, right? Mike Trout's biggest crime against him is he played in Anaheim. Because you look at him and you're like, if you're not a baseball fan staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning like me, or a few people that are like me, you don't experience the greatness of a Mike Trout on a nightly basis. Because you're just like, damn, I'm not staying up till 1 o'clock just to watch 4 ABs. Where Mike Trout is, you know what I mean? Like, most people don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's just, I guess it's a catch-22. It's a little bit of his fault, but it's a lot of the Angels' fault. Yeah. And it's kind of like we're at this fork in the road, and we need to figure out who's going to take a shit first, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, just to kind of like paint a picture for everyone right now, Mike Trout is going to be 33 years old this year in August. He is on contract until the year 2030. He'll be 38 years old. Could you imagine what 36, 37, 38 is going to look for Mike Trout? I mean, listen, I want him to age as gracefully as possible, but we know that once you start getting to the mid 30s, and even sometimes sooner, like, look, Trout is 32 right now, and we're asking whether he's a top 5 player or not. If we have to ask that, it's because you listen, at your best, yes, we get it. You're still there, but you just haven't necessarily been that. I would say over the past like 2 seasons, he hasn't.
Mike Trout
misses way too many games.
Yep. Mike Trout is the equivalent of the dude that got all the potential in the world, but you can't get this guy on the field because you're just like, man, what's going to happen next? One day it was the calf. The next day it was the back. The next day is this. You're just like, bruh, it just doesn't make sense why we're going to keep doing this. And that's why a trade for him or of him at some point would make the most sense for the Angels. Also, too, from the standpoint of, you're robbing baseball fans of whatever prime years this guy has left by sticking him in Anaheim. I'm sorry, but that's not good for the sport. It's just not good for the sport. I know.
I've got a question for you, Stefan. Would you consider, because my answer to what I'm about to ask you is yes. I'm going to let you guys know in advance.
Okay.
Would you say that Mike Trout is one of those guys who is strictly just playing for money at this point in his career? Because like you said a couple minutes ago, he was the one who agreed to sign that extension with the Angels. You could have taken the initiative to say, nah, you know what? I think my time here as an Angel has come up, and I want to go elsewhere because, listen, I'm putting myself first. I want to win. At this point, I mean, yeah, it sounds good. I'm sure the Angels could pull a move off, but one, are people really looking for like Mike Trout's like whereabouts after the Angels?
Well,
not so much. Not so much.
But it's also deeper than that, right? It's like you could have got. To me, he's underpaid.
Wow.
Because if he hits the open market, when he was 28, you're getting a $500 million deal.
Oh, right. Sorry. I thought you were saying like right now his value
no.
is
when he signed the contract he signed at the age of 28. He signed for 12 at 426 was the deal, right? Because he also signed an extension on top of the money that he already had on the previous contract, which was like 6 at 144 was his first deal before this. And then he re-upped again and signed an extension on top of the years he had left. So the contract comes out to 12 years of 426.5 million. If he got to free agency, he would have made over 500 million easily. He would have been Juan Soto in terms of pay before Juan Soto was even a thing.
Well, let me ask you this thing, because I agree. Mike Trout, had he reached the open market, I think he would have gotten more than what the Angels offered him. But in that case, then what does that mean Judge would have gotten from the Yankees? You know, what is Soto going to get now? If that happened at the time, could you imagine where we would be? Does that mean Ohtani signs for 800 instead of 700?
I'll tell you this. If Judge gave the Yankees a hometown discount.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, the Padres were willing to give him $400 million off the rip. They were like, yo, here's a $400 million contract for 10 years. He had to
shout out to the owner who passed away, but that was a ballsy move.
He was a gangster. You want to talk about a dude that didn't give a fuck about money?
Yeah.
You want the definition of filthy? He was filthy, but he was filthy rich. You know what I'm saying? That's a different level of commitment, right? So he gave the Yankees a hometown discount. He was like, oh, I want to be captain. I want to finish my story. I want to do all that. But if Judge hits the open market, he's about to get $400 million from San Diego. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's something that we need to consider. Like, yo, and Soto already turned down 440 from the Nationals. You know he's looking at anywhere between 550 and 600.
Mind you, he didn't do that like a year or two ago. I think he said no, like what, 3 years ago, maybe?
He said, remember I told y'all when they traded him, I said, yo, they're going to have to trade him because the moment you say no to 440 and 15, there's no, what are we doing here? We can't.
Shout out to Juan Soto, though, because I'm going to be honest, and I think we can all agree on this here. I think any other player would have said yes. Right.
See, but not everybody.
See it all the time. Like we talk about guys like Ronald Acuna Jr.
Trout is the example. Trout took the money because it was right there for him. Right. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Juan Soto is a better hitter than Mike Trout. He's a better hitter. Like he's this generation's Ted Williams. Well, I'm leaving right now.
What I would say, though, you are right, Stefan, and I don't want to argue that point because I would be stupid to do so.
I mean, you could argue it.
Mike Trout, in terms of overall value, you know, Mike Trout in his prime, we're talking about a guy who was a Gold Glove Award finalist in center field. We're talking about a guy who won MVPs, a guy who stole bases, and that's not to diminish Juan Soto because I agree that he is the better hitter. But the better baseball player was certainly Mike Trout.
Well, we could stipulate that. Although that throw he made in Houston and the couple throws he made this year, he might tell you to hold his whole beard.
Right, and that's not really something that Juan Soto is known for. But let's be honest, man. Come on, Mike Trout was looking like he was climbing walls. He was looking like a white Torrey Hunter for the Angels. Literally
white Torrey Hunter. I'm done.
Yeah, you remember Torrey Hunter, the center fielder of the Minnesota Twins?
I do.
Won a bunch of Gold Gloves in center field.
No, yeah,
climbing up all types of different walls, all different types of ballparks.
No, got it. I do remember who that is. Yeah, but let's see what happens with this Mike Trout thing, man. I will say this: I think this is the year. I think at the trade deadline, we're gonna have some serious conversations. And honestly, it doesn't start with the GM Perry Manassian. It's gonna have to start with Mike going up to ownership and go, listen, we're 10-18 on the season already. We're already 8 games under 500. Like we're putting up offensive numbers. We're scoring like 5-6 runs a game, but we're getting blown out. The last 2 games, they gave up over 11 runs. They lost 11-5 today. Last night they lost 13-5 or something like that. They get blown out of games. So even when the offense does show up, which it has been doing, they're not in very many games. I think do me a favor, look up their bullpen ERA for me. I think they got to be like lower third of the big leagues, no, like at least 27, probably even lower than that.
Let me see. The Angels right now in terms of ERA was your question, right?
Team ERA. Let's look at the
They
team.
are ranked 28th with a 5 ERA.
So they're ranked 28th. That's amongst 30 teams. That's
the two teams that come after are the Chicago White Sox, ranked 29th, and to finish it out, the Colorado Rockies with a 6 ERA.
Who I refuse to talk about, by the way. If anybody brings up a Rocky segment on this show, your comment will be banned. I'm not talking about. No, you laugh. I'm dead serious. I'm not talking about the Rockies. We're not doing it.
Don't worry. They're gonna do what they've been doing over the past decade. They're waiting until they get that next shortstop. We saw them do it with Tulo. They got rid of him. They got Trevor Story. They got rid of him. Nolan Arenado got rid of him. Listen, man, they've had some good players come through that system, but it just hasn't worked for them since the Todd Helton days.
Anyway, we just started talking about the Rockies. I refuse to do this. I'm not going to engage.
All right, so let's get into some more comments here before we get into our next segment. Let's see here. I can't trust Major League Baseball to make a consistent product of sticky stuff. They are intentionally approving the manual of different types of balls. Yeah. What year was it, Stefan, where
2019, the year that Gleyber Torres turned into the white-handed version of Barry Bonds.
The year of the juiced balls, right?
Yep. Well, I thought a bunt was about to leave the yard for a 1 point.
Big men don't belong in the outfield.
But I don't think Mike Trout is that. Mike Trout's not that big of a dude. Well, how much? What is Mike Trout's height? What is he, like 6'4", 6'3"?
Mike Trout. Let's see. Mike Trout.
Big of a dude. I can understand if he's like 6'7".
He's solid though.
He's solid, but he ain't that tall.
Yeah. Let's see. Mike Trout. I'll tell you right now. He is. Let's see. 6'2", 235.
See, yeah, I would buy the weight. The weight is a little bit rough for me. All right, Razor, you might have a point. I'll take that back. I am
the Angels are scumbags. Goddamn, what did they do to you?
No, well, he's still holding on to the fact that a player died under their watch, Tyler Skaggs.
Oh, yes, I remember.
That's big for him. So
Trout is not a top 5 player. Listen, I wouldn't actually argue that, Rick. I think, and I said it before, I think the reason why we are asking that now is because it could go either way. Like, you could make an argument that when he's healthy, maybe he cracks it at like number 5.
I'm just asking
that guy.
I'm not asking if he's a top 5 player in general. I'm asking it for one particular reason. If he's still a consistent top 5 player, it enhances his trade value. So what does it do on the open? What does it do at the trade deadline? We all know he's not the same player he once was, but this is strictly for trade deadline purposes. Does he force the Angels' hand to move him? That's simply why this question is being asked.
But he could. He could. Listen, Stefan, you know damn well.
Not with this owner.
Wow, that's a damn shame, bro. Listen, and I'm going to say this because I understand exactly why you say that. But for you to do everything that you've done for that organization, despite being as bad as they've been as a team, not you as a player, Mike Trout, but you telling me that you can't wake up tomorrow morning, you don't have the balls to walk into the office and demand a trade, that's a damn shame. I thought you had more clout than that, Trout. I thought you had more clout than that.
It's not his clout. It's the owner. The owner can decide, yo, we're not moving you, right?
I get it.
This is the same owner that held on to Shohei Ohtani just to say, yo, just to be the guy that says I'm holding on to him. Because if you remember at the trade deadline last year, there was a significant thought that Ohtani was going to be traded. It's not whether Trout wants to ask for a trade. It's whether or not the ownership group themselves says, yo, we're going to let you request this trade and we're going to help you pick your next destination. Adi Moreno, the owner of the Angels, is not the most advantageous to doing what's best for the player when the player's on his way out. Use Ohtani as the example. Use Torrey Hunter as the example. Use Albert Pujols as the example. Use all these different examples. The guy does not work with players.
I would really like to sit in on the conversations that Mike Trout has with the Angels front office in the offseason. Like, what are you guys really talking about? Or are you just going through like your regime in the offseason and then being ready for spring training without actually having any dialect? Bro,
So
that's the vibe I get.
But it's not the front office's fault. This is why I'm gonna take if you gave Paramenazian, the GM, true serum right now and said, yo, I want to move Mike Trout, he's going to trade him 10 out of 10 times. Because baseball today is all about value, getting back younger value, getting back something that is meaningful for the future of the organization.
Oh, they could kiss that goodbye. I don't care how good Trout is now or moving forward. They could kiss that shit goodbye.
I'm using it as a generalized statement. I'm not specifically saying Trout. I'm saying front offices generally want to get the most value out of a player that they can, especially if they're in a losing situation, right? The problem is your owner is a flat out idiot. So the owner's going to do everything he can to try and say, no, let's not do this. Let's try and keep Trout around. Let's build around him and see if, because he's the only one that's filling the seats. If Trout goes, this place is a desert. Nobody's coming. It looks like that already with Mike Trout even being there. So him being gone is completely going to eradicate whatever fan bases you had. Right. My thought process is we're not talking about a regular owner, and we're not talking about a regular owner front office dynamic. It's very different. I guess is my thought that I'm trying to express, right? It's not like you can go to an owner and say, yo, I really want to move on from here. You know, Artie Moreno might look at you and like, yo, those checks cash every 2 weeks. Yeah, nah, you ain't moving.
Well, so you're right, but excuse me, I thought Mike Trout had it like that at this point.
It's not whether he has it like that. He can request it. He probably has requested it.
No, but even from the simple aspect of just the respect level, and I'm not saying that by not owning up to his wish, had he asked for a trade, you're not respecting him. So, well, you're not disrespecting him, but just to give him what he wants at this point in his career, because y'all clearly don't know what you're doing. You just mentioned all the other players that they gave lucrative deals to, Stefan, and it absolutely failed. It's just a damn shame.
What I'm saying to you is, I hear your point. I'm not here for the disagreement. I'm just talking about an owner who's stuck in his ways, who is not going to do what's best for the player. Because if you didn't do it for Ohtani, if you didn't trade Ohtani to get some semblance of value back, you ain't doing it for a guy that's beat up, that's 33, that's your franchise player, that you've invested this money, time, promotional skills in to move him now. If you're talking about any other owner besides John Fisher in Oakland, Artie Moreno and John Fisher might be the two worst owners in baseball. And I would probably throw Mark Antanasio in there with the Brewers as well, who continues to try and hope and pray that you get something out of the Yelich investment, which they're not going to get because he's hurt again. So the three owners I just named you, Mark Antanasio, Artie Moreno, and the guy in Oakland, John Fisher, three worst owners in baseball. And that's why the A's and the Angels are stuck in this baseball purgatory with no end in sight, because they don't think about the future. Now, granted, some of these guys are older, up in age. So Mike Trout might be the last semblance of whatever shred of hope you thought you had to bring some sort of competitive baseball back to the city, but it ain't happening, right? Like we see with the Ilitch family. How long did it take the Ilitch family in Detroit to move on from V-Mart and Miguel Cabrera and all these older guys, because the matriarch Ilitch was dying? So how far do you go before it's like, you know?
Yeah,
like,
I get it.
You saw it with the Nationals. You held on to Strides. You held on to this one. You held on to all these different pieces. And so,
see, in that case, it was actually worth it. Like, I know they should have done a lot more with what they had, especially considering that they had Bryce Harper. I know they won without him, but the fact that they did have him, along with that crew that they won the World Series with, they should have done more. But damn, at least you did that. The Angels have done absolutely nothing.
Right. Speaking of doing absolutely nothing, you know what? I think we've reached the crescendo, bro. I think this is it. And the reason why I think this is it is because I want to ask you guys a question as it relates to this topic, and then we're leaving. If you were the owner of the Anaheim Angels, what do you do? Do you bite the bullet and move on from him, which is what most logical people do? Or do you try and sustain it like Artie Moreno has done? This is the conversation that you now have to have. Like, it has to be a thing.
I'll tell you what, and you didn't ask us, Stefan, but you know, I'm just gonna put it out there. As a fan, I don't even care if he stays there. He could listen, and I'm not saying this because I dislike Mike Trout. As I mentioned, Mike Trout is a wonderful player. I've liked him for a very long time now.
Right.
But I don't care to would I like to see him win a ring? Of course. Of course. You always want guys to go out on top at least one time. So even if it is only once, but he could stay there, he could rot. Like
it's rough. You know, I get the sense these are the two names I got. I don't know if this is apropos because we're leaving now, but the two names that I got from this was David Wright with the Mets under the Wilpons. Like David Wright should have been like, yo, get me out of Queens. I can do this somewhere else. I know I'm the captain, but we ain't winning. My back is shot. 2015 was a flash in the pan. I'm done. I'm done with y'all. Move me. You know, now moving him would have been a completely different situation because he couldn't even get on the field. So you want to move Trout before that even becomes an eventuality, and this is also reminding me of a little
stuck with him at that point. Then really, no one is gonna want him at all,
right? And
because he'll just be damaged goods.
Talk about it, and I think the other guy that I thought of, and I'm sitting here like, and you're really sad, was Miguel Cabrera. Like you stood in Detroit for far too long. Your body betrayed you. You took the money. Yes, you were a great Tiger. Yes, you achieved some level of success. But did you get to the point where you really wanted to go? I don't think you did. And, you know, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, yo, is it even worth it to give so much to these organizations when in return, more often than not, they don't give the same level of love and respect back to the players as it relates to trying to build competitive teams around these players?
Right. So I know you already mentioned Stefan, and a friendly reminder, of course, make sure you follow us on Instagram at 27ounce3C. And of course, make sure you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But before we go, we do have some more comments. So, you know, I want to show everyone their love before we go for tonight. Rick says, Otani, Bet, Soto, Judge, Harper, Trout is sixth. Too much against him. I hear you. I hear you. And some people would even throw like a Freddie Freeman up there as well. So Trout maybe isn't even sixth.
Talk about it. Yep.
Yeah, you could really go so many ways with this. That was a mistake to give him all that money. Absolutely.
I think the bigger mistake was him signing it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
And that's exactly what Razor said right after. Ray it was a mistake for him to take it. Yeah.
Talk about it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a Michael Jackson song that best describes Audie Moreno and the Angels. Money.
Yeah.
Trout can finish his career there like King Felix did in Seattle.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
Let him go. I mean, if it was that easy, right? They should have done that a couple years ago. But
talk about it. Talk about it.
Miggy is different. He won a chip early.
He did not win.
Well, I'm sure he wanted and deserved more. He got his ring.
Nah, but
it was with a different organization.
Exactly, and he won a chip at 20 years old. He barely even appreciates the championship ring. He was wet behind his first year in the big leagues.
Yeah,
it's a completely different thing. It's different.
What I would say though, he looked damn good in those Florida Marlins days, man.
Oh my God,
he looked really good.
Real quick, we're leaving right now because this could become a thing, but. Just to think, Miguel Cabrera, Giancarlo Stanton, Marcell Ozuna, Christian Yelich, all these guys were Marlins, and now to see the trajectory of their careers as it relates to moving on and going different places, and how sad it's ending for all four of those players, is a cautionary tale of does baseball belong in Florida?
Huh? Great question. I mean, we see how it is for the Rays. They barely have fans show up, and they've been a respectable organization. I feel like back when they were the Devil Rays, that's back when they were laughable. But they've been the complete opposite of what they were, and it just hasn't translated well. Like the fans just aren't like, I don't know if there's like a connection missing between the Tampa Bay Rays and their fan base.
Okay, so the connection is, and we're going to end this like this, it's a retirement community. You got a baseball team in a retirement community. St. Petersburg, Florida is a retirement community. Speaking of retired,
but I thought the old people love baseball. What happened?
Listen, the old people love baseball when they could sit in the crib and watch it and not have to go to a ballpark like the Trout. Speaking of retired, this show is retired, and so am I. By the way, before I get out of here, let's go Knicks. I just want to let that be known. Orange and blue in this mug. And before I head on out of here, I just have one message. Fuck Joel Embiid.
Oh, well, I have one question though, and I think I know the answer, but we gotta have actual footage of this. We gotta have the proof. We gotta be able to revisit it when we come back next week. Sunday, of course, at 8 for episode 11.
Yep.
Make sure you guys come back for that because we'll definitely be here.
Yep.
Knicks, between now and episode 11, are they in the second round?
Yes.
Of the Eastern Conference playoffs?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
This thing ends on Tuesday night. Let's
Tuesday.
go home, kids.
Mark your calendars. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.